So
Live.
Chuck Person, small forward for the Pacers, drafted 4th overall, I believe, in the late '80s. He was playing Larry Bird on Christmas Day in 1990, and he made a joke to Larry Bird before the tip-off that he was going hunting. Get it? Because he's a bird, Larry Bird. And Larry Bird immediately hit a three in Chuck Person's face, turned to him and said, "Merry fucking Christmas."
I'm about to get mine and it's about time. Call us Grindhouse, everybody in a house grind. I'm just doing me, I ain't trying to outshine. Trying to kill my vibe is how you get outline.
So actually, it was in the second half and Chuck Person was on the bench, but hey, whatever. So this day in NBA history, staying on topic, on December 7th, 1956, Larry Joe Bird himself, the hick from French Lick, was born in West Baden, Indiana. Larry Bird, of course, part of the first Hall of Fame class that was inducted here in the Hoopstorians, and I think he's become the subject of some discussion, definitely on the internet, about his legacy, and I think people are taking a hard look at him retroactively. I think Larry Bird's a top 10 player. I think he has one of the greatest 3-year peaks of all time, even if you go out to 5-year, one of the greatest 5-year peaks of all time. And I think I think he's been the best player on 3 title teams. So I think that's still worthy of him being top 10. But I know there's some people that have looked at some of his playoff drops especially early in his career, like against Milwaukee in '83, etc. His fairly lackluster performance in his first finals in his second year, 1981, although I believe he was second in MVP that year and was the best player leading up to the playoffs, no doubt, even though Cedric Maxwell won MVP. I'll start with Jules, because I know Jules is the Bird truther in the group. So, Jules, what do you think of Larry Bird?
So it's I am one of those people to put it out there. I do think Larry Bird, I do think there's certain people that have a top 10 case, and doing a lot of reevaluations lately. I moved him right outside my top 10. He's number 11, but I'm not one of these guys that he's like, oh, he can't be top 20. I'm not one of these new gen people who are like, he wouldn't be able to translate in today's game. I think he would be fantastic in the transition. His transition playmaking is up there. When watching these games, I do think that he's incredibly impactful, because a lot of people think about him for his scoring efficiencies and what he can do in half court. But I think he's actually valued in the full court in transition. Defensively, I think he's a very switchable and capable defender. I do think that there was some things that he was lackluster on because of his athleticism, but that didn't take. I don't try to take away from his greatness. I'm just one of those people who go back and look at these games and look at him to see what he was in half court, and I just don't think it was necessarily fantastic, but it's still where he has the 3-year peak. He's one of the greatest offensive players ever. I just don't know, to me, where I evaluate him. I just don't know if he's right there with them, because I think right in that around 8 to 12 range, there's a lot of people who are interchangeable there. And I just think when I reevaluate Bird and watch him and see him, there's just a lot of stuff that is overwhelmingly there. And I've made videos on my TikTok at Jules Compton, as you guys can see, that I've gotten some shit for. And I don't know. I don't try to be one of these new gens, but I just try to make these fair assessments when we talk about these all-time greats.
Tony?
I got Larry Bird 9th. Like I said, I'm with you on that. You know, at the end of the day, he's the best player on 3 title teams, three MVPs. I still think I'm one of those. I was just arguing this recently. I think Larry Bird is still the best player in the '81 Finals for the Celtics. Cedric Maxwell scores him by about 2.5 points, but Bird gets him by like 9 rebounds. 4 or 5 assists. Better D. Yeah, I mean, it's just he's everywhere else other than scoring. And I just think there's more to the game and all that. So yeah, I got Larry Bird 9th. I think obviously if his back would have held up, he entered the league late. He was 23 his rookie year. He turned 23, in December. Fun fact about Larry Bird's birthday: my dad was actually born in '56, and my second ex-wife was born December 7th. So a combination of them both, that we're representing here. But yeah, I got Larry Bird in my top 10. I think he's the ninth greatest player of all time based on his accolades, his accomplishments. And I think if you ever ask his peers that played against him, I mean, they talk about him almost mythological, godlike. I've never heard anybody play against him other than Dennis Rodman, who said, something bad about him. And I think Dennis Rodman changed his tune over the last 35 years or so.
Sure.
Is that it? Hoops, you want to add? What do you think?
No, I think I agree with you. Like you said, best player in five finals teams, 3 title teams, 5-year peak. I think 5-year peak from 84 to 88, 5 seasons. He's like 27, 10, and 7 on basically 50, 40, 90. So leading great offenses, leading great offenses and pretty good defenses. And I think his ability to elevate his teammates in that era is only matched by Magic Johnson. So while Magic Johnson's comfortably ahead of him, I don't think Bird's worthy of a top 10 player despite the short prime. So that's it.
Boom. That was this day in NBA history. Cool. So we're doing the second annual Hall of Fame. We shrunk it a little bit this year. There might be a few people popping in here and there. Last year we did a massive 10 panel, and it just kind of ran long, trying to get to everybody. So we kind of shortened it up this year. We're
reinventing the Hall of Fame, basically, right? We're saying the Hall of Fame as it stands sucks because you've got Dino Raja and Yao Ming in the Hall of Fame, despite very little NBA success because it just incorporates too many people. I mean, people with little NBA success like Calvin Murphy get in the Hall of Fame, and this has got to stop. And so we're saying, what's the NBA Hall of Fame look like? And this is the second class.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you both this. If we start inducting 5 players every year, after 20 years, that's 100 players. When are we going to start running out of players where it's like, dude, these guys aren't surefire first ballot Hall of Famers?
It's a good question.
It is a good question. Probably.
How many legit guys are there in the Hall of Fame? And in 20 years, there's going to be a whole new crop of guys as well.
Yeah, it'll probably be a while because we think, when we were doing our top 80, we were like, there's at least 80 Hall of Fame careers, right? So, and now there's new guys. Like we can't even have LeBron, Curry, and KD right now because they're active. Chris Paul is active, right? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. James Harden. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's already had a Hall of Fame career. Nikola Jokic has already had a Hall of Fame career, right? So those guys are definitely worthy first ballot guys. Luka Doncic, same thing. So it'd be a while, I think, but it's still even with 100 names, 200 names, it's still we still won't sink to the standards of the current NBA basketball Hall of Fame, which is in the floor. Is DeMar DeRozan a Hall of Famer? He's gonna be. Should he be?
He's gonna be. Yeah, I would agree. It's probably. It's going to depend on how the current NBA standard is if we're going to see a lot of these people who are peaking at all-time levels, and then how long do they do it? Because I've had this discussion with a couple people off camera from here, is that I agree, right? SGA is probably peaking at all time, but he doesn't have the quality years like a lot of these other people have. He has 4 probably at max right now. And I agree. I think he is a Hall of Famer, but what if somebody gets hurt, right? It's like Luka and Giannis specifically are starting to get hurt and dwindle. And Luka's not even 26 and Giannis is barely 32. So where do these discussions then lie as the quality years start to arise with the high pace of the game being at all-time high? So value the peak, or are we valuing the prime? And that's going to be an interesting topic going forward. But to answer the question specifically, it's probably going to be 30 or 40 years, depending on if the top players now are able to maintain themselves for 8 years, for 9 years, and so on and so forth. So I think it would be comfortable for 20 but we'll really have to reevaluate once not even this set, but the set after comes into the helm and how they look and how the NBA looks, because we just don't know.
Yeah. I think Giannis has already made like Luka, you could say, okay, he's 26, 27, he might get hurt, and we don't know. But Giannis, I think, has already had a surefire first ballot Hall of Fame career without question.
Well, he's got over 20,000 points. Very few people make it.
Yeah, two
MVPs. Yeah, but I was going to say, I'm saying just with the 20,000 alone, just a strong case. Because the only people that have 20,000 points in our Hall of Fame that are Hall of Fame eligible that don't have it are literally the bottom 3 scorers at the 20,000 point club. Other than that, everybody else has it, and that's Jameson, Joe Johnson, and Tom Chambers. So yeah, I think Giannis is a lot. I will say on the DeMar DeRozan thing, people don't think he's Hall of Famer and all that. Dude, it'd be the first time ever we've denied 25,000 points into the Hall of Fame. That is a lot of fucking points.
It's true. I mean, the thing is I'm thinking about it more like if we, depending on the standards, like DeMar DeRozan, I'm just looking at it now. He's 3-time All-NBA. He's like a 7 or 8-time All-Star. He's got some seasons of 27 points per game. Was the best player, maybe second best player on like a 59-win team. So it's like he's probably gonna, maybe he's probably worthy, but he's borderline. If it were like NFL Hall of Fame standards, like Torrey Holt's on the Hall of Fame, like that's kind of like it's kind of where I'm at with DeMar DeRozan. Like, yeah, I think he eventually will make it, but maybe a better case, is Kyrie Irving a Hall of Famer?
Sure.
Like, is Kyrie Irving?
No, definitely not as of right now. I mean, and I don't see him bouncing back, to be as good. I mean, he's now 33 years old, post-injuries. But the skill, it's all about the skill.
If we look at it honestly, like we look at again in the NFL, if we hold to that standard, Kyrie Irving's not a Hall of Famer. But he's gonna.
Yeah, definitely. I think Kyrie Irving is a Hall of Famer at all. But that's where I'm at. But who is a Hall of Famer?
Who?
These 5 guys we're about to name. So let's get into it. So coming in this year, our first induction into the second annual Sports Fluent Hall of Fame is Jerry West. Now, Jerry West, anybody want to give a little recap or a little special thing about Jerry West, or should I go?
You go, and then we'll go.
Okay, cool. So Jerry West is in the Basketball Hall of Fame. He's a 14-time All-Star. He's the 1970 scoring champ. He's the 72 All-Star MVP. He's the 69 Finals MVP, the only guy that ever lost. NBA 50th All-Anniversary team, 35th All-Anniversary team, 75th All-Anniversary team. He's also the 72 media voted MVP as well. He's a 5-time All-Defender, 12-time All-NBA, 1972 champ. He's also the 72 assist leader. For his career, he averages 27, 7, and 6 while shooting 47%, which is damn fucking impressive for a 6'3 guard in the 60s and 70s. Also shoots 81% at the line. Does anybody know what the number was SGA got to the line last year as the free throw merchant he was?
Was like
about
10,
about
right?
9 times, 8.9 or something like that, I think. And Jerry West was
cool. Jerry West for his career averages 9.4 free throw attempts for his career. Peaks at 12.4 as well. I mean, we're talking a guy with career 25,000 points, 6,000 assists, 5,000 rebounds. Guys, let's go into Jerry West. We'll kick into hoops first. Where do you got Jerry West all time? And maybe you could tell us like a fun fact, interesting that you know about Jerry West that most people just really don't realize.
So Jerry West, I have him in the top 20. I booted him out of my top 15 in favor of Moses Malone recently. Tony, you convinced me of it, frankly. Moses Malone, a 3-time MVP who led his team to 2 finals, was the best player in the title team, is probably a better resume than what Jerry West has. But Jerry West, I think is a victim of unfortunate circumstances running into the greatest dynasty in the history of the NBA. There are all these finals that they lose to the Celtics, right? He loses 8 finals. He finally wins one in 72. He's not the best player on his team. It's Will Chamberlain. But some of these series where he's averaging 34 points per game, 31 points per game. I think in the 62 finals, he's averaging 31 points per game. That goes 7 games. And if Frank Selvey hits that baseline jumper that he always hits, at the end of regulation. He's an NBA champion in 62, but it goes into overtime and they close it out. Russell has a 30-40 closeout game, right? One of the greatest playoff performers and one of the greatest finals performers in the history of the league. I think one of the things that's interesting about Jerry West, I know Jules knows this because we talked about it, but one of the interesting things about Jerry West, I believe he was on the All the Smoke podcast, and he was talking about his all of the finals losses that he had, throughout against the Celtics and then against the Knicks. By the time he finally won in 72, he said it didn't mean anything to him. It didn't mean anything to him. He said he was happy for the city of LA that they finally were able to hoist the championship trophy. He was happy to win for the city, but he felt bad for them having made it so many times to the finals and lost. So from that, he had a great deal of trauma, but I really don't think a lot of this rests on his shoulders. Again, we talked about his 69 finals MVP where he averages nearly 40 points per game. It's not his fault. It's Eric Erickson, or whatever his name is. And Will Chamberlain, frankly, who was very inconsistent throughout the series, right? I think his teammates fail him. I think he's in bad circumstances, like when Elgin Baylor's hurt in 65 or 66. 65, and he has to average 40 points per game. So one of the greatest playoff performers, one of the greatest scorers ever. The fact that he was able to score as much as he did without a three-point line is truly a remarkable feat, one that for a guard we won't see ever again. That's why I think he's a locked-in top 20 player. Would he be my first choice for the second class of the Hall of Fame? No, he wouldn't, but worthy inclusion for sure.
I would.
What do you think about the Wolf?
I would agree. I am a Jerry West stan. I love Jerry. Some things that Hoops because I can go on and on about Jerry West. Probably the first real combo guard in NBA history. One of the greatest defenders for his position at the time, and very, very very smart. And we don't even need to talk about the accomplishments of what he did on the court. We can just talk about how he was, even as a GM, for moving all of these franchises, what he did. One of the greatest basketball minds in the history of the NBA, being able to see and develop talent at a very young age, to see these guys develop and understand trends throughout the years. A very, very smart man. When he passed away, I know the joke was he passed away because he couldn't see the Celtics win another title. But he was transcendent for his time. Would I say he should make this second class? Maybe not, but I think it's a worthy inclusion because of what he had to go through, all the traumatic experiences he had to go through, that like Hoop says, the greatest dynasty of all time, carrying that team basically on his shoulders because of Baylor being inconsistent and that stagnant offense when he was on the court, or Elgin specifically. A whole bunch of stuff. I love Jerry West, and I'm glad that he's here. Not to take away from the voting, to disagree with anything, but he is very, very transcendent for his time. You're muted, by the way, Hoops.
Just to clarify, so people know how we did this, how we made this process, we'd asked a group of people, content creators, who we respected their basketball opinion, particularly when it came to understanding the history of the game, to give us 10 names in order of preference. And the order of preference was the assigned points that you get. So first, number 1 would be 10 points, and then you go down from there, and number 10 is 1 point. I did have Jerry West. I had him around 8 or 9. He's somebody I wanted to vote for. I wanted him to be in one of these one of these early classes. The very first, again, the second class, I don't think, I guess for chronologically, it's, I think, a satisfying result. But in terms of worthiness, I don't think it is over guys like Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, etc. The one that I'm upset that didn't make it, and I know Tony is too, is George Mikan. I think George Mikan should have made it in to at least the second class of Hall of Fame, because he is the most impactful superstar in NBA history without question. He's the most impactful figure in NBA history without question when you bring in how he influenced the ABA and the three-point line and what that's brought us here. The original pace and space revolutionary, not just on the court by inventing the shot, by leading to the invention of the shot clock and doubling the length of the key because he was so dominant in the 50s, but also off the court when he agreed to implement the three-point line in the ABA. So I really thought George Mikan should have made it, definitely over Jerry West. But hey, well, we live to fight another day.
Yeah, I think that's completely
This year-
fine.
I was going to say George
that, Tim?
Mikan did get 3 first-place votes this year.
Okay.
But like I've been pushing him ever since. I thought he should be in the first class. I'm going to keep pushing George Mikan. You know what I mean? Is my pick till we get him in here, obviously. What I wanted to say though about Jerry West is, does anybody know what Jerry West did game by game against Baltimore in '65 in a 6-game series?
Vaguely. I'm like,
Okay, well let me just tell you. Game 1 is 49 points. Game 2 is 52 points. Game 3 is 44 points. Game 4 is 48 points. Game 5 is 43 points. Game 6 is 42 points to set the record for scoring in a series at 46.3 per game. That record is held by Jerry West. Nobody's ever averaged more in a series than Jerry West.
Yeah. Incredible.
So-
That's why I love Jerry.
Do we got anything else we want to add, Jerry, before we go on to number 4? And we're doing this in order by how the voting worked, so we're revealing our top one who they thought, was the most deserving in the second class. So does anybody else want to say anything about Jerry West before we move on to the next guy?
No.
I think that's fine.
Okay. Now I'm going to let one of you two introduce the next guy. So you can read off what he is. Coming in number 4 in the Sports Fluent Second Annual Hall of Fame, we got Kobe Bryant. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of him. He was a pretty good player in the 2000s. He had a couple good seasons in the 10s. He was known to he was a jersey biter.
So, Kobe, I'll start because I put Kobe Bryant in my top 5, I believe, because I thought he was based on who had gotten in and based on who had gotten in already, which was Michael Jordan, Kareem, Bird, Magic, Russell, and Wilt. I thought Kobe Bryant was one of the next guys up. As much as there are pockets of the internet that want to overrate Kobe's career and at the expense of other players, which I think can be really, really grating for people, like at the expense of guys like LeBron or Kareem, etc. People that they want to, or Shaq, they want to denigrate their career to elevate Kobe's, which I think is really disappointing to me because I was a huge Kobe fan growing up. And I still am a Kobe fan because that's why I put him. He was in my top 5, I believe, for the Hall of Fame class. One of the, I think, certainly a top 10 worthy player, top 10 worthy resume. One of the greatest scorers of all time, the greatest difficult shot maker of all time. At a certain point, was one of the best two-way players in the league. Certainly earlier in his years with Shaq. Now he is the best. He is the second fiddle to Shaq during those first 3 championship runs, which I do think needs to be put into context when we evaluate the championships he has won. But he is the best player to ever be a number 2 option. That is without question. There is no player that's a better number 2 option than 2001 or 2002 Kobe Bryant. I don't think Steph Curry. I don't, and that includes Steph Curry too. I think he's the best player to ever be a number 2 option. Averaged 30 points per game in the 2001 playoffs, was 33 points per game in that Western Conference Finals. Of course, he benefited from Shaq and the gravity that Shaq had, but he was still, those rings are his as well. He worked for those rings. He was not as good in the finals, honestly. He was great in the 02 finals, 01 finals. He was fine. He was solid. 2000 finals, he wasn't that good outside of that. Really good overtime game 4, which I do think gets overblown a bit when you see his fourth quarter numbers, but still he stepped up. That was his big coming out party. He scored 8 points in overtime, gave him a 3-1 lead, which obviously tilted the momentum of the series in the Lakers' favor. The absolute height of his powers comes at a time where the team isn't very good. And that I think is partially his fault. A great, big part of his fault. His personality issues with Shaq, him saying you want
Absolutely his fault.
It's his fault. He had some issues with Shaq. He had issues with Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson left for a year. He was talking about trading Bynum to fans. That's on video. Kevin Garnett was going to go there, but then he couldn't get a hold of Kobe because he didn't know where Kobe was going to go. But that was the height of his powers. We got to see a spectacular scoring show at the very least. Maybe that was better for his career. Who knows? Because he scored 81 points in a game, outscored an entire team through three quarters, averaged 40 points per game in a month, multiple 50-point games, all of that. His best years were as the best player on his team were 2008 to 2010, 3 straight finals, 2 back-to-back titles. I will say in the Western Conference during those runs, for the most part, especially in the Western Conference finals, he was great. He was a wrecker. He was like 30 points per game. I think in 2008, he was like 50-something% from the field. He destroyed the Spurs. And then in the Nuggets, where they had a harder time,
2010 is amazing.
Yeah, 2010 is amazing against the Suns.
2010 is amazing in the Western Conference.
I remember 2009, when he closes out that series, he decides, I'm going to put the Nuggets away. I'm going to send them home, right? And I believe George Karl said, I don't think Jesus could have stopped Kobe Bryant out there tonight, right? And 2010, in the Western Conference Finals, that closeout game in Game 6 where he pats Alvin Robertson, the coach of the Suns, on the ass, that was a masterclass. The finals, mixed bag, I think. 2009 is a great finals performance, his best finals performance. 2010 is a bit of a mixed bag, but he's still the best player on the court. He's still, I believe, worthy of the finals MVP for his performance throughout the series. And 2011 is not great, but 2012 and 2013, he's a top 5 player in the league again, right? 2013 is one of his most efficient scoring years. He tears his Achilles. His usage rate's too high. You can blame it on Dwight Howard or whatever. It is what it is. He tears his Achilles. He's never the same again. But certainly one of the greatest primes we've ever seen. One of the greatest primes we've ever seen. One of the 15-ish greatest peaks we've ever seen, I think. I don't think it's a top 10 peak anymore now that Jokic, guys like Jokic has come along and all of that. So, that's it. I mean, as much as we have to argue about Kobe, as much as people call us Kobe haters, even though, like I said, he's one of my favorite players of all time. I've got a Kobe Bryant sticker right here on my computer, actually. I proposed to my wife wearing a Kobe shirt, actually. And he is
awesome.
His 14-year prime is one of the greatest things we've ever seen. He was a top 5 player in the world at minimum for those 14 years. And he's definitely worthy of being in the second class of the Hall of Fame.
I couldn't say it any better. As being, I guess, the opposite of having to deal with Kobe as being a Spurs fan. Yeah, he kind of wrecked our shit for a long time. But as Hoop said, I think majority of the time he was able to benefit because they had Shaq and we had Tim Duncan. So we were able to handle that, but we didn't have the perimeter defenders to go and help out with Kobe Bryant and feeding off the one-on-one opportunities, because people are trying to argue that, Bruce Bowen was a stopper. No, he was not able to stop Kobe Bryant. It was just a complete reckoning on the perimeter defense on San Antonio. But a lot of the stuff you said, like you said perfectly. I can't really go much deeper than what you said. What I will say personally from my end, if people don't know, I'm from the city of Philadelphia and I grew up 20 minutes away from Lower Merion. So when he passed, I was one of the people who went and put roses on Lower Merion's doorstep, as a lot of the NBC national news saw. And it meant a lot to everybody. And being from around the area and growing up being around where his family was from, and even meeting his parents, it was very moving for that. And I think that's why a lot of fans, specifically of Kobe, are still holding on to the memories so much and overrate him because of the moments. He has fantastic moments, but when you look at it at a wider lens, we're understanding that it's just not as impactful when we talk about the truth of Kobe Bryant. I know Tony, we get squandered as, again, the Kobe haters. No, we're Kobe truthers, and we're able to objectify what he has done for the game on retroactively compared to people overvaluing certain aspects and not being consistent. So I hate being framed as the Kobe hater. A Kobe hater, I'm not that. I just think there's a lot of people, like we said, that are just greater than what he did overall.
Tony.
Yeah, so to clear it up, I think we're all kind of the same. Nobody's a Kobe hater. We are a Kobe fan, lying hater. Like, we hate the lies they tell, the half-truths, the narratives, and all that. Like, I'll be honest with you, I cried the day Kobe died. Only celebrity I have ever cried over. I've never met Kobe. I'll put it this way. I was a huge fan, like, in my youth. You know, I grew up, you know, I was born in the 80s. So my first real hero was Hulk Hogan. You know what I mean? Bigger than life. You know what I mean? When he died, I didn't cry. But I cried when Kobe died. So, and like, Kobe was nowhere near my hero. What I want to go with is more so the cultural impact of Kobe. I think Kobe Bryant is literally the greatest liar we've ever seen. He's like a snake. His moves has hypnotized an entire group of people into thinking he's the GOAT, into thinking that he has an argument over a guy like LeBron, that he is really a consensus top 3 player. Now, if you were looking at basketball skill, you know, and Hakeem Olajuwon was on the board, and Shaq was on the board, and Jokic, and Giannis, and Kobe, you would take Kobe over all these, because that is how good he is. So with that being said, for the pure entertainment value in that regard, he did something for a whole generation of people. And like I said, this whole Mamba mentality, it's influenced a lot of players. A lot more players are influenced by him and all that. So kudos to him on the cultural impact that he did, which I don't think really anybody else so far has done in that regard, because everybody else is kind of legitimately right. I've just never seen somebody get jumped up so high over, and there's no substance behind it. It falls apart really quickly when you test the logic, but it's the eye test and what they did and what they saw and what they felt when watching Kobe. To Kobe's point, I will say this, and this is why I will never be a Kobe hater. The man worked his fucking ass off. His fucking ass off. How the fuck can I hate somebody that's putting everything into working his ass off? Do I think he took bullshit shots sometimes and he should have passed? Absolutely. Totally agree. Do I think instead of trying to get an extra shot, he should have crashed the board? Sure. But I can never hate anybody that puts as much effort and work ethic into him. And on top of it, how can you not respect and admire a man who I think arguably has the highest pain tolerance we've ever seen in the NBA?
Yeah.
I have never seen nobody, I don't think, that has his highest pain tolerance as him. So just on those two simple facts alone, I could never hate him. I just don't want to listen to no bullshit lies. And that's where I tell the fans all the time, I hate you. I don't hate him. He didn't say this bullshit to me. You did. So that is what I'm saying. So I think we need to, Hoops, I think you need to make a video about his work ethic and his pain tolerance. You know what I mean? That's where we need to highlight, because I think he's the go to that shit.
Yeah, playing 2010, winning a title on a broken finger, right? He had a broken finger on his shooting hand and was still willed his team to a title. And
popping his shoulder in place in the middle of games.
Shoulder in place, getting an Achilles tear and going shooting the free throws. All incredible stuff. All why we love Kobe Bryant.
Oh my God. Here, I'll tell you what. As a person, right, I like Kobe Bryant more than LeBron. I will give you the best Kobe Bryant story. And you'll have to find it, and I don't remember exactly how it went down, but do you remember when Kobe came back after the Achilles? He played 6 games. He cracks his kneecap. Okay? He breaks his knee. He grimaces a little and shakes it off. The very next televised game, I don't know if it's the very next game, the very next televised game, I see LeBron get slapped in the face. He's rolling around on the ground like he got shot.
Yeah.
Those are one of the many reasons why I like Kobe Bryant more than LeBron, but I'm not going to lie about it. So that's what I'm saying. This dude got slapped in the face. This dude's grimacing a little with a broken kneecap. So that right. Stuff like that. I think that's what I'm saying. We need a package of highlights and stuff like that about his pain tolerance. Legendary.
I made a video about just his off the court, how impressive he was off the court, all the stuff he was going to do. I mean, we can talk about that another time because we've got some other people to move on to. But I paid a lot of money to go see Kobe Bryant's last game in Boston at TD Garden. I've always loved his game, and I think it's a worthy inclusion. A prime of 28 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. A 14-year prime, which is a long prime, and definitely worthy of this class. One of the greatest players of all time. So I think we should probably move on. We spent a lot of time on him.
Yeah.
Right. Coming in next is Hakeem Olajuwon. Jules, do you want to introduce Hakeem? Or?
Yes, I will. I can do Hakeem because I think I'm kind of the Hakeem guy.
You can
So
be the
Hakeem, yeah,
It's all you.
Hakeem, 12-time All-Star, 12-time All NBA, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, 1-time MVP. Probably has arguably one of the best carry jobs of all time. And why he's here is because he's been able, even though where I think reevaluation his prime isn't necessarily as great because there are some questionable years for first round exits that he does have. I think the peak is there, right? And through 94 and 95, 94 doesn't have another top 75 teammate. Don't believe he has another all-star that year. And in 95, yes, they go get Clyde Drexler, but in the regular season, they're not necessarily the same offenses there. But Clyde is able to step up in the playoffs and be a definitive number 2 option behind him during that 95. Oh, for sure.
They were the 4th seed when they traded for Drexler, and they dropped to the 6th seed.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So they lost a little bit more. And why I think he's definitely worthy of this second class is because of the fact that we were just talking about skill with Kobe Bryant. Kobe went to Hakeem for his footwork because that's like we talk about eye tests and stuff. Hakeem definitely passes that eye test being a soccer player prior to being a basketball player, and him being able to create his own shot in the mid post from 16 feet out against anybody, against all these defensive minded centers, Ewing, Robinson, Mutombo. The list goes on and on with the plethora of the guys in the 90s. He's being able to be the best player on a to the 86 finals against the Celtics. They lose, but definitively is, I think, way better than Ralph Sampson on those early Rockets teams. Again, the only kind of plug is after Ralph leaves, there's those like 4 or 5 years where it's first round exit. He's producing well, but he's not being able to get through sub 500 teams. That's no knock on him because we can add the context. Houston as an organization isn't being able to get the help around him, but he's not helping his case either with some of the locker room stuff that he was doing between 90 and 91 specifically. But Hakeem as a peak and as a defensive player has an argument for top 2, probably defensive player of all time, maybe top 3, depending on how people value Wilt. And he is tremendous with his peak, with his MVP, and the clinic that he put on David Robinson in those Western Conference Finals. I can go on and on, but Hakeem, I think, is worthy enough to be this for the second class. Hoops, if you want to go ahead.
Listen, I put Hakeem at 5. I think he's worthy of being on the list. Why I exasperated is because I think Hakeem does get vastly overrated based on those 3 years. Because outside of that, there are some bad playoff moments. I do think these teams are good enough to be better than what they are. When he's got guys like Sleepy Floyd, who's an all-star, Rodney McRae, who's all defensive. He's even got guys like Joe Barry Carroll coming off the bench, right? He's got good enough teams, I think, to be a little bit better. But the problem with Hakeem, and it's kind of the Wilt Chamberlain story, I think he's a black hole offensively. He doesn't do a lot to do any playmaking on his team. He later gets Rudy Tomjanovich, who understands him better, like Wilt gets Alex Hannum. But outside of those 3 years, obviously he's still great. He wins Defensive Player of the Year. He wins DPOY. He's all defensive first team. He does lead his team to the finals in this as a second-year player, right, in 86, where you said he is the best player on the team. That's all great. After that, I don't think it's all that great. He's got Charles Barkley and Clyde Drexler unable to get past the John Stockton, Karl Malone, late stage John Stockton, Karl Malone, Jack. Right. And so I just think when we look at Hakeem Olajuwon's career, the 3-year peak is fucking outstanding, right? You can say 95 Hakeem or 94 Hakeem is a top 5 player, right, in terms of just 1-year peaks. But I think we do just overrate his peak a bit. I mean, I'm not overrate his peak, but overrate his career based on those 3 years, which are incredible, but certainly a worthy inclusion. The only thing that makes me
Hey, Hoop. So like, where?
Sorry,
I just want to know because you said overrated. A lot of people like, where is as high as you think he can be? I was gonna say, where do you think as high as he can be all time?
like 9, maybe 10. Like my whole thing is like I don't have him over Wilt, right? I don't know what the argument for some people have him over Wilt. I don't see the fucking argument there, right? I can see the argument over guys like Kobe or Steph.
Nor do I.
But I don't see the argument over Wilt, and people have him over fucking Shaq. I don't see the argument over Shaq either, right? I don't see the argument over.
Well, the argument is Prime Hakeem beat him in the finals.
Yeah,
that's
and that's
the argument.
People overrate the head-to-head matchup because Shaq plays very well in that series, right? It's just Hakeem's team's better. They just play better. That's just all it is. And so I think the highest I could ever possibly think of going with him is 9, just based on the totality of his career. If it's a peak, it's a lot higher, probably, right? But if it's especially if it's a single season peak. But in terms of his whole career, I just can't, like, maybe 9 is the highest I could go. I would probably say 10 though.
Yeah, no, I think 10 is the highest you can go because logically, and that's why I have him at 10.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be really sad when someone passes him, because he's right on the border, and the next person that becomes top 10, he's out. I think a couple things on this. You were saying it. We had Rudy Tomjanovich on the show. I asked him about what happened with Hakeem when he took off. He said that is our fault. We did not understand the spacing he needed to be to flourish as an offensive player. So if you want his passing, you want his scoring, we need spacing. We did not have spacing. That's on us. Some of the bad teams that he had to deal with, like one year, his starting shooting guard and the backup shooting guard got suspended for the year for drugs. And one of them happened to be Andrew Wiggins' dad. He is so good defensively. He is leading teams to #1 defenses all by himself. There are years where he's dropping in the playoffs. They're like, he averages 18 points a game on like 44%. I agree, but he also averages 6 blocks and 3 steals in that series. So when he does drop, he picks it up in other areas. I've said this over and over again, and I continue to say it, and I'm still to say when we factor in 2 ways, Jokic is now the best offensive player I have ever seen. However, Hakeem is still the best player overall I've seen because when you factor in the defensive side as well. I think Hakeem is, Hakeem's amazing defensively too. So, and then we talk about that 95 run. When you factor in the fact that he beat teams with the top 4 records in the NBA, nobody's ever done that. He beat the only guy to go 4 rounds on the road, win the title. Only guy ever to do that. Beat an NBA MVP, still playing at an all-NBA level every single round. Only one ever to do that. And beat 4 at least 55-win teams, which nobody's ever done. Only one ever to do that. When none of those ever even been done once. And for all 4 of them to happen in the same year, that's a 1 in 645,000 odds. He by far has the hardest title of all time and one of the greatest carry jobs and worst supporting roster all time. So it shows me when you get Hakeem at his peak, he needs the least amount of help to win, and he can go through the hardest road to win. And that is why I think Hakeem Olajuwon is a top 10 player. And, I'm cool with this. I feel like Hakeem is either a, second or third class, depending on how we do it. Like I said, I wouldn't have Mike in over him, but I think Mike definitely deserves to go in the Hall of Fame before.
Sure. All right, so who's number 3?
That was number 3. Now who's number 2?
Number 2.
Number 2, yeah.
Now we have Shaq. Does anybody want to give an intro on Shaq?
Jules, go
Oops.
for it. Oh, you want me to do it?
Oh.
All right, fine. Shaquille O'Neal.
please.
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do Shaq.
No. Because number 1 we'll give to you, Jules. Let's be right up your alley.
All right, fine. We'll do Shaq. Okay, so here's my thing with Shaq. I think Shaq, you can make a top 5 argument for Shaq all time, right? I think Shaq's a much more worthy inclusion of this list than Hakeem is, even though I do think Hakeem, again, I had 5 on this list. People put Shaq over Hakeem. I don't see it. Shaq's 3-year peak, you can argue, is the best of all time. If you told me Shaq from 01 to 02 is better than Jordan from 90 to 1 to 93, or LeBron from whatever 2012 to 14, or whatever peak you want to pick for LeBron, I got nothing, right? I got nothing, because Shaq is for 3 years, 3 straight finals MVPs, 36 and 15 basically throughout those finals, with like 2 blocks and probably about 4 assists. The most dominant force we've seen in a 3-year stretch, maybe other than Michael Jordan. And with Shaq, I think the thing that like we fail to realize is that prior to his time with the Lakers, he had a whole ass fucking Hall of Fame career, right? He came in the league 1993. He was a top 10 player in the league. He turned that 21 win Magic team into a 41 win team. He doubled their win total overnight, basically. And that was the same exact team that he had the year before. And then the following year, he brings it to the playoffs. He loses the Pacers. He has a bad series. It's a bad look for him. But you know what? It's his second year in the league. Then by 95, he's leading his team to the finals. He's second in MVP. He's the scoring champion, right? On a 57 win Magic team with Penny Hardaway. And he's a top 2 maybe player in the league. Remember, Michael Jordan's gone. So Shaq's arguably the second best player in the league. He loses out Hakeem Olajuwon. He still has a great series against Hakeem Olajuwon. He's probably the only great center Hakeem Olajuwon plays to have a great series against him at his peak. When you consider Patrick Ewing, who shit the bed. When you consider David Robinson, who shit the bed. You know who didn't shit the bed? Shaq. Shaq had 28 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists in that series. He played great. The only thing that I think he has a 14-year prime, right? Which is people tend to think he falls off a bit or whatever. His prime's longer than Magic's. It's just as long as Kobe's. It's a lot longer than Bird's, right? And the only thing you can say about him is during that stretch, I'm just looking at it now, he's got averages about 50 games a year, right? 97, he plays 51, 98, he plays 60, 99, he plays 49 games, but that is actually the lockout year. He plays the full game. That's when he really starts to come into his zone. There is some not as dominant playoff runs, but when he finally puts it together, when he finally says, okay, fuck this, I'm the best player in the world, he is the most dominant force we've ever seen. 38 and 17 in the finals, one of the biggest carry jobs we've ever seen. I know Kobe has some contributions like in game 4, but for the most part, he wins a whole game without Kobe. Kobe plays 8 minutes. He drops 44 and 20. He was a walking 40 and 20 in the finals. I think you can argue he's the third greatest finals performer we've ever seen. And then from that time on, he's an all-NBA first teamer till about 2006. Some of that has to do with the competition.
And who are your first 2 on the finals performers?
I would say Jordan and LeBron. I would say Jordan 1, LeBron 2, Shaq 3. That'd be my top 3 finals performers of all time. God. Maybe some people losing their shit over that one with LeBron and a couple of his finals drops. Yeah, he's a couple finals. Yeah, sure. We can get into that some other time. But he has a couple finals drops, and he has 7 straight where he's playing as good as anybody except for Michael Jordan. So from that time, like 20, again, from that 3-year stretch, if you put it all together, he's 28. He's 28, 12, 3 assists, 2 blocks. He's second in DPOY. He's second in DPOY in 2000. When he tries, he's a very good defender. He does lose some of that foot speed by the time he gets to the 2000s, but he is an underrated defender as well. He makes a couple all defensive teams after that. 2004, he's the best player on that finals team. He averages 26 and 10 in a 5-game series against the Pistons, one of the greatest defensive teams I've ever seen, against one of the greatest defenders. Again, another one of the greatest defenders of all time. Shaq's 26 and 11 and has a 30-20 game in, I think, game 4 or game 5 to try to keep them alive. 38 and 20 was like his last gasp as like a great player. Then is the second best player on that Magic team. I know a lot of people say he averages 13 points per game in that series. Okay, he averages like 13 and 12. But during that comeback from games 2 to game 5, in the heart of that comeback, he's 17 points, 12 rebounds, a block and a steal, and I think 3 assists, right? And then he has one more All-Star caliber season in 2009. So Shaq, I think Shaq has a top 5 case. I have him around 6 or 7 all time. And I definitely think he's a worthy inclusion. I think he's exactly where he needs to be at number 3. So Shaq, absolutely the worthy inclusion. I think the most physically dominant force we've ever seen for a 3-year stretch, the best player in the world for that 3-year stretch, and arguably a top 3 peak of all time, top 1 peak of all time.
Just to add on really quickly, I think when people are like the people that underrate Shaq, they bring up the MVP with the most sweeps ever. But if you add in the context, like you mentioned the Pacers series, okay, yeah, he doesn't play great, but do we expect him to get any games against a 72-win Bulls team? Do we expect him to get any against
starters? Missing two starters get hurt in that series.
Exactly. And then they also add the fact that when Shaq is later in his career, he gets swept. I believe it's what, 07, I think.
Yeah, 07 he
yeah.
gets swept in the first round by the Bulls.
So it's right. It's so adding context behind a lot of these teams. It's like the teams that they're going against, it's him, and then at the time it's either super young talent or like it's him carrying, and that's what I hate. I think the only team that you can say, yeah, he didn't really do well against is that Pacers team. Everywhere else, it's like add the context behind it and understand it's young Kobe, it's older Shaq, it's a Hakeem at his peak with a better team. It's the 72 win Bulls. It's like all in all, it's like that's what I hate. And you talk about the prime as well. Shaq, I think, for his size, has one of the most underrated peaks ever. 13, 14-year prime at his size, being 7'1", 300 plus pounds for most of his career. The fact that he can, like, yes, he's playing 50 games around like 55, that's fine. But the fact that he's relatively healthy for 13, 14 years, remarkable. So he should be in these talks. I had him third. I actually had him second in this class for myself. I think he's amazingly still somewhat underrated when it comes to all-time talks, because it's still a little bit of what if he maintained his health, what if he was healthier, he wasn't 300 pounds, what if he was 280, 290, maintained his Orlando size, and just think I think he should be here. Hoops, you said it perfectly. Shout out to them.
And I will say one more thing: 8 field goal titles, and that's averaging. It's not like Rudy Gobert fucking field goal titles where it's like 10 points on 60%. It's fucking 30 points on 57%. He's the most efficient bucket in the NBA.
I thought he had 10.
He might have 10. Maybe he probably has 10. So he's the most. I'm talking about more like in his at his apex, but he's the most efficient bucket in the NBA for a solid 14 years. You can get 28 to 30 points on 57%. And again, people talk about his size. He has great footwork, great touch around the rim. The only thing when people say, what if he tried harder? Yeah, that just kept him out of being the GOAT debate. It doesn't keep him out of anything else.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and not only that too, with the most efficient bucket, he got the entire team in foul trouble as well. Like Jules said, the best defensive Shaq ever is probably rookie Shaq, and he's about 295 there. And that's actually the first full season of basketball I ever watched. Rookie Shaq is so good. 21-11, 4-block Alonzo Mourning is a complete afterthought in the Rookie of the Year. Complete afterthought. Nobody thought he's got the better team. They go to the second round. Nobody thought Alonzo Mourning should have been a complete afterthought. That dude would have won Rookie of the Year damn near any other year within like a 20-year span, other than the year Shaq. You know what I mean? Maybe say Duncan in 90, everybody and shit. He's winning. I mean, unless you want to factor in the 18, but we're talking about just as the player, as the production, he's winning it over LeBron in 04.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's that with Shaq. I have him 8th all time. Yeah, just a monster. He had the 3rd highest peak I've ever seen. Like I said, for 1 year, I put 95. And this is strictly by the eye test is when I say these peaks, and then I kind of just look back and see if the stats backing it up where I have to like say the claim with confidence. So Shaq would be 3rd in me. I got 95 Hakeem, 93 Jordan, and then 2000 Shaq. And then now I probably got some version of this Jokic. I don't know. I don't even know which. I'm waiting till he retires before I finally decide. I'm waiting to see if he puts up something better.
Better.
But yeah, so Shaq's amazing. He really should be in the GOAT debate. I'm so sorry for that, but we're running out of time, so we're going to push it to Jules. Jules, in our final selection, the guy that got the most votes by everybody is Tim Duncan. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, Jules. He's a pretty good player. He can win some games. From my understanding, he actually is a better what the fuck is that game called? It's called ping pong. He's actually a better ping pong player, he claims, than basketball player.
He's actually very competitive in ping pong. I looked at that story personally. I thought it was very fun. Actually, a fantastic swimmer.
Yeah,
too,
that's all
mind
where
you.
he talks shit. We're like, yeah, yes, well, and then but he quit that. But yeah, I heard ping pong. That's where he really gets to shit talking. That's where he
Yes.
sounds like Michael Jordan shit talking or Larry Bird. But yeah, if you could
Yes.
introduce this player to us, Jules, in case there's anybody that doesn't know him.
So Tim Duncan, right, being the Spurs fan, that's kind of why I wanted to do this. So Hoops, you started off before saying the Orlando Magic going to 41 wins. The year before, yes, David Robinson is hurt, and a lot of that starting lineup is hurt. He elevates them to 56 wins, and he's a top 5 player immediately, winning Rookie of the Year, All NBA first team, All Defensive second team, top 5 in MVP voting immediately. Then the year after, even though it's a lockout year, he wins a title as the best player on that said San Antonio team. Why people underrate Tim Duncan is because of when he's playing, because it's the dead ball era, and they all look at their true shooting, the efficiencies, and all this kind of stuff. Even at his position, outplaying Dirk Nowitzki, Kevin Garnett, Rasheed Wallace, Chris Webber, the list goes on. The golden age of power forwards. He comes out on top with arguably way less help in his early years, because Tony Parker is a rookie second-year guy. Manu Ginobili is a rookie second-year guy, and he's winning titles as the best player really up until 2007. And people will argue, well, he's not the best player in 2007. He definitively is, because he's leading the team in rebounds, assists, blocks, and steals. He's the only reason why Tony Parker gets that Finals MVP is because he averages more points. And we're talking about the graph.
Tim Duncan lets him. He's happy for him. He's a great teammate.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. One of the most unselfish superstars of all time. Always 50 wins year in and year out. The motto of consistency, defensive powerhouse, leading top five defenses for damn near 20 years, regardless of who is in the front court with him, whether it's David Robinson, Rasho Nesterovic, Tiago Splitter, Steven Jackson, Bruce Bowen. Doesn't matter, even though it's good or bad. He's the model of consistency, and why he should be the first ballot, the guy with the most points in this year's class, is because of the impact that he is, and basically modern day Bill Russell, right? And I love that comparison for him. Bill Russell talks to him himself, saying that he sees a lot of himself in him, the model of winning, consistency, unselfishness. I could go on and on. Again, being a Spurs fan, but Tim Duncan's legacy of winning with less, with Greg Popovich, basically saves Greg Popovich's coaching career after that 6-8 start. And they held on the locker room, and they talk about it, and they go on a 30-win pace, and they were on actually supposed to, if that lockout striking year wasn't locked out, they were going to win 60+ games. Tim Duncan is unbelievable. I could go on and on about him, but Hoops, if there's anything that you want to add before we get out of here for Tim Duncan.
The argument for Tim Duncan definitely isn't his peak, although he has, I think, a great peak. I'm going from like 2002, his first MVP, to 2004, when he anchors the statistically the greatest defense of the modern era. He's 20. I believe he's 24 points, 13 rebounds, 3 blocks, and 3 assists on 50% from the field in the height of the dead ball era. Yeah, I mean, I think with Tim Duncan, he's one of those guys that, like, a lot like Bill Russell. You got to watch it. You got to see it, right? You've got to see how he commands that defense. Now, he's a top 2 or 3 defender of all time, and people might gawk at that because he doesn't get a lot of blocks, but people don't see how his length. You got to watch and see how his length is actually an incredible rim deterrent, right? People aren't even getting to the rim because Tim Duncan's there. He anchors, I believe, in a 10-year span, 5 number 1 defenses, and never falls out of the top 3 until 2007. That's before Bruce Bowen gets there. That's it. Even afterwards, when he's the best defender on that 24, I think he's the best defender on that 2014 Spurs team. You might say Kawhi's the best overall player, fine, whatever. You can argue Tim Duncan's the best player. He's definitively the best player on 4 title teams. He leads his team to 4 titles, wins 3 finals MVPs, back-to-back MVPs in 2002 and 2003. With Tim Duncan, you're getting 50 wins a year, and you're getting a shot at the title. And when we talk about the golden age of power forwards, let's talk about the 2006 semifinals where he is outplaying. He is outplaying Dirk Nowitzki. That's peak Dirk Nowitzki in that series. It goes 7 games. A stupid fucking Manu Ginobili and 1 foul is what keeps Tim Duncan from probably winning another title. A Ray Allen three-pointer, a Chris Bosh rebound, and a Ray Allen three-pointer is what keeps Tim Duncan from winning another title. He could have been 6-0 in the finals. He could have been 7-0 in the finals, if not for a couple of miscues. But still, he's 5-1. That's pretty fucking good. Tim Duncan enters the league.
Hey, Hoop.
Yeah.
He's literally, possibly literally, but legit. The 0.4 shot, and then the Manu Ginobili foul from doing let's see, a 5-peat. That would have been 5 straight.
Tiny miscues away. Derek Fisher shooting that 0.4 shot. That might have been started a little bit late, by the way. They might have started the clock a little bit late on that, by the way. A 0.4 shot, a Manu Ginobili foul could have been a 5-peat. We unfortunately it wasn't. That's the way it goes. But again, 5-1 is pretty fucking good. And outplaying Dirk Nowitzki in the 2006 finals, beating that Heat team. And I know Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh aren't what they used to be, but beating that, coming back and being I think the centerpiece for that 2014 Spurs, one of the greatest teams of all time that wins the finals by the largest margin in the history of the NBA. He comes in the league. This team is a contender. They win 56 games. When he leaves the league his very last year, he's a starter on a 67-win team. He churns out contenders. People will bring up that he lost. People always bring up, oh, well, he lost as an 8 seed. He lost to an 8 seed as a 1 seed. Absolutely a stand on his resume. He didn't play well. He got outplayed by Zach Randolph. He wasn't that good that year to begin with. But people also don't bring up the year before he wins as a 7 seed, beating a 2 seed, outplaying Dirk Nowitzki again, right? No one ever fucking brings that up, right? And when we talk about, again, Tim Duncan, it's not the peak, it's the consistency. If you said I'm going to take Tim Duncan number 1 overall in a draft, right, all time, I wouldn't have much of an argument because you're going to get 50 wins, you're going to get a shot at the title. Tim Duncan was my number 2 on this list behind George Mikan. Him being the number 1 overwhelming guy really warms my heart because I think people really underappreciate how great and how consistently great Tim Duncan is. Again, it's not about the peak. It's about just going out there every year, being unselfish, doing all the little things to elevate your team and just going out there and winning. And that's what Tim Duncan did. That's it, Tony. Tony?
So the thing with me is, and I'm going to wrap this up real quick, because you guys really covered it really well. The thing about Tim Duncan with me is eye test wise, and a lot of people don't realize this. Tim Duncan got the knee injury in the 2000 season, right? He was more athletic before then. Okay, so by eye test only, the best Tim Duncan I ever saw was 99 Tim Duncan. Dude is averaging 27 a game in 78 point fucking games. You know what I mean? He is just looking amazing. And not only that, me being Larry Johnson's my all-time favorite player, I was rooting hard for the Knicks. Hard like a motherfucker. He had just knocked the Suns out the year before, and now he knocks out the Knicks. You know what I mean? So this dude's been a pain in my ass for years. So if I was going to be a hater of anybody, nobody's knocked me out more than the Spurs as my fandom. But I got to give it to the man. I have no – and not only that, Tim Duncan, because I remember one time Bill Simmons was talking to Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes. They go, who would you take? Who would you take, Duncan or Bryant? They both said Kobe. They go, why? Because he's just willing to do anything to win. Well, last I checked, Kobe didn't want to come off the bench to win, and he didn't want to take a pay cut to win. Tim Duncan did both.
Yep.
So one of the ultimate winners, and that's really all I got to say. You guys want to add anything? Because we're
I think we're good. I think this is a great list.
Yeah, and shout out to Woodage at the bottom. Duncan versus Forrest Gump, the ultimate ping pong battle. I would love to see that.
There we go. So we're gonna end it on that. We will see y'all next week. Jules and Hoops will be gone for the holidays. They got some stuff to do. We're gonna have the sports psychologist, a couple people on. We're gonna talk about that. Make sure you guys check out Fluent and Chill. That's coming up next. Till then, bless the ones who broke you because they're ones who built you. And